Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by John, Arwin, who else we got? Great Geezer, and we've got Mark and Sleeping Warrior. How you doing? It's Angel. I should have remembered your name.
I've not dropped out, Nathan.
Say again?
I've not dropped out.
You've not dropped out?
No, but I didn't get a shout, so that's why I was...
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Adam. Iron Realm Media. I'll stick the icons up.
We're all doing well. See the same stream.
Say again, Angel?
Second part.
Well, on the same YouTube channel, it still seems to be working.
Yeah, it will do. I had an internet problem on the last stream, so it ended, and I've just started with a new intro for anybody who's interested. But as far as anybody who clicks on this in the future, it'll just be its own self-contained stream. I may well, after John's finished doing his bits and bobs, might put the link out, so it might actually turn into a debate in this show. We shall see.
Before John starts again, Nathan, I just want to say, because I was just blowing smoke up John's arse. And both of you, it was stuff that, you know, we've alluded to over the years as guys have been going at Iron Realm. And it was particularly since John's come on, and the way, particularly I've heard you just like become like Mr. Scientist. And no matter what the ballers say, you know, I've heard you uphold what is scientific principle, stuff that I've led me to my questions and queries over time from my understanding, you know what I mean? So I just want to say, particularly, you know, it's not something that I do, but the way you guys have been able to take on the ballers, it's not something I feel like probably I might give it a go one day, joining the show. But the way you've done it on the fly with them has been outstanding from a point of defending science. Yeah, not flat Earth, not anything, but defending science, and respect to both of you. And like I say, I know you said that John had given you a bit of coaching, Nathan, and fair play, mate. I think qualifications my arse. Do you know what I mean? You understanding the scientific principle, that you guys have really laid it out there for everybody, layman's, to really fully understand. And thanks, guys.
Well, I was chatting with Betty this morning about exactly that, and you know, all I'm not trying to blow smoke John's arse either, but with the same token, it's all credit to John on account of the fact that he's been banging this drum for 3 years in this arena, and probably 10 years plus in other arenas, and trying to get this message across. And that would probably, I can imagine, I'm not speaking for you, John, but I'd imagine that was quite frustrating, you know, trying to get this message out there that science is not on their side at all.
Yeah, well, thank you to Adam. And yeah, you're right. It's frustrating, especially after all that time. I can break down a simple subject to adults, and they just don't get it. The scientific method is the scientific method. It's when I first learned it back in 5th grade, I seen it up on the board, and it's always stayed with me, you know, throughout my life, throughout academia, throughout my profession. It was really cut and dry, and it still is. It doesn't change. But people have bastardized it and now replace science with fairy tales and then call it science, which infuriates me.
My observation with the American system of education and the British system is we're never taught about the scientific method, nor about logical fallacies or how to put forward an argument. Is that your experience, Nathan and Anthony?
I remember in high school when we were going through the scientific method, there were basically four things. There was apparatus used, there was hypothesis, there was methodology, and there was result stroke conclusion. Now, in the real world, none of that ever applies. It's everything else but that. But when John talks about it, I go back to like what was known as first year, second year, third year high school. It's now year 7, 8, and 9, because that's what we did in school. But in the real adult world, it does not apply, and that omission or that lack of science in the real world is the reason we're in this mess right now. When John refers to going back to high school, I'm right there with him. I don't remember all parts of it. I don't remember exactly how it all went, but John seems to remember it better than me. But I can relate to what John's referencing by my own experience in high school.
If you take it that basic, Anthony, when we go back to school, A levels and stuff, and first you had your hypothesis, you had your null, and I know you guys all elaborate on that, but you then did the experiment, and basically your hypothesis was an elaboration. It was a fantasy. It was something for you to postulate the purpose of the experiment. The best you ever did was reject your null. That's whatever your results were. You didn't ever prove your hypothesis. All you ever did was able to reject your null, so you could redefine and narrow your null hypothesis a little bit more for the next experiment.
No, the way it's set up, the way you do it is.
I was expecting this.
the way you do it with the alternative and the null, you reject or falsify the null by proving the alternative. Let me pull this up. Is my screen still sharing?
I think that what I'm saying is in a lot of, certainly as was alluded to earlier, A level and lower degree level stuff, the only hypothesis you have and you work with, and I refer to this, and I have a mixed background. I refer to this specifically with the non-scientific sciences, such as psychology, which I studied as well. Because if I'm being honest, that's one of the areas where these statements, alternative, null and hypothesis, H1, bear the greatest significance. So if I'm being honest, in my history of understanding the scientific method, it really is with the non-sciences that really tried to cling on to the null and H1 hypothesis, and maybe that's something you could probably destroy in terms of alternative and the reason for that in terms of the scientific method, because I think that's a lot of the argument you get. Sorry to interrupt there. I thought I'd finished, but I hadn't. that seems to me, when I'm listening to you guys, that a lot of the argument you get that it's just H1, H0.
Yeah, well, in the pseudosciences, the ones I've identified countless times, you don't have any hypotheses. You can't get that far. So there is no alternative or null. You can't get there. You're either stopped with the paleontology, archaeology, anthropology, geology, evolutionary biology. Yes, and I'm still laughing. You can't get to the first step of the scientific method. You can't observe a phenomenon. You can only observe concrete nouns or after effects, right? And that's destroyed at its core by quantum mechanics, because you have to observe a phenomenon. You can't make conjectures about the past. And quantum mechanics speaks to that. Now, the other guys, the ones that we deal with in this genre, astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics, now they can observe a phenomena, right? They have no problem with that. We observe phenomena every day, in those disciplines. However, your problem comes in when you try to form a hypothesis, because then you need an independent and dependent variable, right? You can't you there isn't an independent variable. There's nothing that you can vary or manipulate. So you don't have a hypothesis. Therefore, you don't have a hypothesis test, an experiment. Experiment is the queen of the scientific method. That's its whole point. That's how you get there. And in an experiment, well, what do you have? Well, you have the independent and dependent variable. It magically shows up again from your hypothesis. I know it's amazing. Being that an experiment is a hypothesis test, and you have to have a hypothesis before you have an experiment. So, and I don't know what these other people are talking about where there's different scientific methods, there's this and that. Listen, when I learned it in 5th grade, it was the same through 12th. It was the same through the university. It didn't change. It stayed the same. And it stayed the same throughout my profession until I retired. It never changed. It always stayed the same. Everyone knew this. When I first got into this discussion, I never had any citations or references for this. I just assumed everyone knew this. And that was a bit myopic on my part. That's why I had to go back. It took me about a year or two to take everything that I had and then go chase the citations down for it, because people wanted citations, right? So I cite everything for them. It's ridiculous to me. It's like, well, you're a butcher, right? You're asking me to provide citations to you to confirm that ribeyes come from cows. That's how ridiculous it is to me personally. So I just wanted to get that off my chest.
No, I totally get it. It's very, very annoying when, like you say, it was highlighted for me when you sent me the song with the scientific method in it. They broke it down exactly how you say it, but they're doing it in a kind of dumbed down, almost comical way, and it's all factually correct, but it's assumed that the people doing this will understand what an independent variable is. So it's not an easy citation to find, believe it or not.
I think that as like I said, you guys, particularly you, John, when you came on Nathan's show, excuse me, that was the main exposure I'd had to your work, and it's particularly this one that was a kick in the nuts for me. Okay, as I've probably stated, and I mean it not in terms of
sorry about
learning.
that.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Thank you, is what I would say. It's not in terms of clinical learning, because obviously they're very basics, what you're stating there, but actually bringing it back to the fundamentals of the scientific method, in that actually it's very, very narrow what the scientific method can define and state as a fact after that. And that what it can't do is go, oh, look, there's a boat going over the curve, therefore the Earth's a ball spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. You know, if you look at what's there, type 1 diabetes suffer from diabetic ketoacidosis, apparently from absence of coincidence. It follows, but the alternative hypothesis, given otherwise type 1 diabetes mellitus patients, the lack of insulin on board will lead to diabetic. It's actually a very narrow, and it requires maybe a little bit of clinical understanding to how much the alternative hypothesis narrows the
Exactly. You got it.
variability in the observable phenomenon. And like I said, that was the one that, like I said, kicked me in the nuts, because it is, come on guys, stop pissing in the wind saying A equals B and therefore you can fantasize C. This is very narrow. It requires a type 1 diabetic patient. You know, these are very narrow parameters, and even within the null hypothesis, it's a very narrow parameter that you're looking at and observing. And for me, when you then explore that out to the ballers, you do realize that what they tend to do is take these very narrow parameters and extrapolate them out to it being a spinning ball.
Yeah, you can't do it. The whole context of their argument is wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is real. I don't know what to say. I mean, when I have to break it down and I have to tell somebody that is basically a pretender clown, because if I have to explain what an independent and dependent variable is to you, you're a pretender clown. You shouldn't be in the discussion. Go back. I'm sorry. You know, if this hurts your snowflakes feelings, go back to your cake decorating threads, because you just exposed yourself. Are we tracking Sally's out there? All right. But I'm sorry, I'm getting all hyped up.
That's all good.
I think you did that on purpose.
I apologize for pumping you up, but genuinely, honestly, it was that little phrase that, like, as somebody that would probably read clinical papers, it's the sort of stuff that actually, since getting into flat earth, made me think, hold up. And I've always been very cynical anyway, but actually it really is a full kick in the nuts.
But I would
in terms of bringing it back to what the implications of an observation and H1, H0 are, what it actually can mean, and how little it can mean.
But that shouldn't have kicked you, Adam. I mean, you're talking about vision, you know, a few weeks ago, and cis and trans isomers. I mean, I thought for a second, I said, well, this stuff shouldn't surprise him at all.
No, but maybe that's probably look. We're all in the matrix, guys, aren't we? Yeah, and we all live in our little worlds as we imagine it. And when we're screaming at the rumpus, his world is focused on that. So you've heard me talk about cis trans isomerism and all that kind of nonsense, chemical nonsense and stuff. But the point I'm making to you is, when you presented that hypothesis, actually it was about realizing the specific nature. I'm not going to try specific. The
specificity.
How specific it has to be, and how narrow the field on which rejection and acceptance is. And it isn't this big. It's like I say, I can see a boat going over the horizon. That's not the analogy that won't that you start me with, but to put it simply, I can see a boat going over the horizon, therefore it has to be a ball. And it's the weakness of this science that's used to validate the ball that, if people apply that logic, it strengthens our, not proof of flatness, but our analysis. It strengthens the way we can view things.
Yeah, because they don't really provide they provide you an answer, but it's not tested. It's an observation followed by a fairy tale just so story. Right?
Yeah.
Explanation in science needs to be accompanied by experimental validation. If you don't have that, see, there's two things there. Explanation with experimental validation. If you don't have the experimental validation supporting your explanation, then it's a fairy tale just so story. Go ahead and deal with it. Not you, Adam.
It's just like that graph. Just another story. The graph of the temperature of the sun and the big jump.
That's the point. That's when I look at it, and I use the phrase, and I did give you credit, Nathan, for just so story on Friday, and it's exactly that. It's how it is an explanation that is way beyond the data that you've got.
No, it's not. It's science, bro.
Yeah.
I like it, and the other one, science says. That'll send me off the reservation quick.
The whole body of science believes me, man.
The body of science.
It's just like having a conversation with Rumpus, even though he's not here. I've just got him running through my mind right now.
All right. Well, do you guys want to get back to this?
Yeah, sorry, bro.
No.
It's fun.
No, that was good. That was good. All right. We brought up Ranty's picks before. Remember, he took this shot and he was showing how that this looks like, as these windmill towers, whatever you want to call them, are going away from you. Well, it looks like they're on a curve because they're getting smaller, right? You can tell that there's a curve here. But then what did he do? Hope the next picture, and that's not it. What did he do? Well, instead of the z-axis, he went over and took a look at this axis, right? This is the same axis. Well, they were curving before, or had an angle to them before, and you would think, well, yep, there's a curve there. Well, they have to be going down, but guess what? On this axis, they're not. And I'm sorry, which one was it? I think it was the red line, if I'm not mistaken, Nathan.
I think so. Yeah, that's the ones that he's looking down.
Right. So once you take back over here, if you're looking straight down here, these seem to go over the curve, right? Or they bend down. But on this axis, well, they're not doing that, are they? It's straight across.
And the other thing to notice, if you just flick back to that previous one, I don't remember what the distance was to the first turbine, but whatever that distance was, there is a buildup of exponential curve there that we should be seeing manifest in the picture. It wasn't 1 mile away. It was about 12.
This was 11. I think it was 11. I might be mistaken. I think I'm in the ballpark. 11 to 13.
Yeah, so the
right.
difference between the 11th mile and the 13th mile is an exponential amount of curve.
What you see there, Anthony, is a straight line, don't you? You don't see a curve, or you see an incline due to perspective.
And to be honest, John, I'm going to correct what you said. I don't know if it was a misspeak or whether you actually said something that you believe to be true, but you described them as they appear to be curving down, and I thought, no, they don't. They appear to be flat and straight perspective, and they don't appear to be curving down at all.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, but you use the word appear, so therefore that negates a definition.
I wouldn't say that they appear to be curved down.
Your brain fills it in. The brain fills the shape in because of where the points fit, don't they?
I think what Ranty also did on his presentation, I can't remember which debate it was on, but he basically pointed out that when you measure it and show how the curve maths works, it's perfectly in line with perspective, because when he plots out how much they should be dropping away in terms of perspective, this is what you get. Obviously, this is reality. This is a photograph, and it matches perfectly what we would expect based on perspective.
Yes,
there you go.
correct.
You go onto the other axis, and it's flat as a pancake. They're all perfectly in line with each other, exactly as you would expect them to be.
Yes.
But this is what we're seeing. Why are they disappearing bottom first, we are asked. Well, that's the nature of perspective. That's what happens. Things get smaller and closer to the horizon as they get further away. It's fairly straightforward stuff. But yet, you present these wind turbines to them and they go, look, the one's bit at the back. They're lower to the ground. Yeah, that's perspective. And when you say that, they ridicule you.
Corridor was good, weren't it? That showed it, how the lower part, the sea level rises up and the top merges down. That corridor, I thought, was a great photo from Dave Marsh in terms of showing how it's going to block stuff out.
All right, we good on this? Any other comments, questions on this one?
Love it. I'm glad you kept hold of those, because as I say, Ranty's at least temporarily not got access to those photos. So I'm glad you've got them.
Yeah, if he needs it, just let me know, and I could send them back.
Cool.
All right, we're good. We're good. I thought this was outstanding, by the way. The concept. We're just going for the concept here, right? On the different axes. All right, good. Comments, questions?
No, that was it. I mean, I said I'd take full credit because what I asked Ranty to do was see if he had this. So I explained that on the first or second hangout I ever did, we did this demonstration, exactly this demonstration, but with CAD. And it's that you can't compare to showing it with photographs. We described how it would be affected and how you would look on the other axis and see no curve, where you have obstruction looking front to back. but you demonstrate it in CAD and people go, yeah, that's very nice, but that's not the real world. So when Ranty was showing me some of these photos, I was like, by chance, have you got the 90-degree position to this? He's like, I might have. And he went through dozens and dozens and dozens of captures. And he went, here you go. This is it. And I was like, absolutely perfect. He plotted it out, got all the GPS coordinates, checked and double checked that it was exactly what he thought it was. And I was like, great, let's present it. This is perfect. A real world example of looking down the opposite axis and seeing no curve, where apparently we see obstruction, which is being co-opted from perspective to be called curvature. And it isn't. It's just perspective. Simple.
That's a great word, co-opted.
Listen, sorry to interrupt. This is a really good time, Nathan. If you read the comment that I sent you on Skype, the picture, don't say who it's come from, but just read the comment aloud and let's just laugh at it, because it's the ballers just don't understand it. I don't know whether it's all ballers or whether it's just this one particular one, but just read, as it was the result of after today's hangout. Sure. This message sent to me, and just read it aloud, Nathan. It's brilliant.
This is sent to you. I won't read who from who. How embarrassed are you that Nathan conflates left to right curve with obstruction? Blatantly no shame.
And then read my response.
Nathan is right though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay. We good?
I think it's because a lot of these ballers have got this in their mind that the Earth is absolutely massive. And even though they got it that it's massive, right, they still accept Soundly's evidence as credible, even though it's a paradox for them, but they don't realise it, but they accept it anyway. They think it's massive, but still accept Soundly's work. And they conflate the two phrases, they conflate the two positions, because when it suits them, they'll say the Earth's huge and we're like ants on it. And then when it suits them the other way, they'll say Soundly shows the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, we had someone on the other day who was basically saying, he said it, how did he phrase it? A thought experiment. A thought experiment would be to say that the Earth is absolutely enormous, and it's like, no, you've got this fixed value. You can't just change it. It's based on all the mathematics of the celestial observations, and they're tying it to a fixed radius value. So you can't just say, oh well, maybe it's massive. It's like, no. The only point in having a ball to begin with is to make their celestial observations tie in with a spherical Earth. You know, it's a presupposition that we're on a sphere to begin with. It always will be. That's most of the arguments we get. But it doesn't mean we're on a sphere. You know, it means absolutely nothing. But you can't change the R value. Sorry, you can't. A new guest. I can't even say that. How you doing? Can you hear us? Straight on to mute.
Have you shared the link?
Yeah, the link's been out for ages.
You silly idiot.
Somebody else on here?
Oh, we're all good. Oh, got a couple of trolls.
John left, has he been?
Just me.
I think John was sniped out. Let's see if I can get him back in on Skype.
Should have left it as a circle jerk for today.
Nah. Hey, plain truth. The last show was completely closed show, so this is a new hangout, so... You hear us, plain truth? Hello? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Good to have you.
Have we dried up?
Have we dried up?
It's just a pregnant pause there.
Just add water. I can start.
Yeah, we're just wondering if our new guest might have any evidence for the shape of the Earth.
Are you talking about me?
Sure.
No. I've been here before. You know me.
Okay.
I was on the talk after the show stopped earlier, and Don Treader said exactly that. He called it a thought experiment, and He just was lambasting us because we could not conceive of the fact that what we were talking about is periphery. So that if you're looking down Pontchartrain and you're looking down the distance, but then you have periphery, that's left to right. So he was saying there's no curve on the left or right. It's just not going to be there. It's going to be there on the distance, but it's not going to be there on the periphery. And it was just insane.
I'm back.
Why?
Good to have you.
Somebody took me out.
Little sods.
Did I miss anything?
No, A Plain Truth was just summarising what happened on the earlier debate about the opposing axes. So I'm just going to put Mark's screen up, although you can't see it, John, just to show exactly what we're talking about. Obviously, everyone in the house can see Mark's icon. But yeah, exactly that. If you're going to claim that you can see things at the other end of this axis being obstructed because there is a curve between you and it, then you will see that same curve looking in the opposite direction, which is why Ranty's capture of those wind turbines is just so magical. Just a perfect real-world illustration that when you look along this axis, you have a perception of curvature. However, when you look along the opposite axis, you don't. It's flat. And realistically, every picture that we are ever presented where we have this claimed obstruction of curvature, we should see curvature on the other axis as well. And in every photo we don't. We only ever focus on the front to back obstruction. Just meaningless. It's not curve. It's just nonsense. It's just perspective. But there we go. We hear it time and
It's
time
not
again.
wide enough angle camera.
Say that again.
It's not a wide enough angle camera.
Oh, come on. You can go to any seaside town.
I'm
or go
joking. I'm joking.
He's just being a contrarian for the fun of the
A
debate.
stretch of maybe 100 miles of horizon of the sea, and it's always flat.
Does anybody have what the scale is going to be like if you are looking out in the distance, if you're on the seashore and you're looking straight out, the periphery, what's the estimated scale as to what that distance actually is out that far? Does anybody know?
No, I cannot, and I cannot confirm that, but I will do. I can stand on the south coast of England and look from France to Portugal, and that's a massive distance of maybe 300 miles, and the horizon is always dead level. Anybody can go out and check that themselves. It's not just 1 degree of 69 miles. It's hundreds of miles that you can observe, and the horizon is always flat on the x-axis.
Can I reference a comment in chat from Saucy London? Riley thinks you need 3 planes to take down 3 towers. Yeah, I do think that you need 3 planes to take down 3 towers.
It take more than 3 planes. I think you couldn't take 1 tower
Or
down
some
with 3
controlled
planes.
demolition.
You can't take down 1 tower with 3 planes.
I know, but I'm just pointing out that maths isn't the reflection of reality. Not saying that it did happen.
Hey, Nathan, I just have a couple more points. Can I continue or not?
Yeah, of course you can.
Can I share my screen again? Let's try this.
AP Mars, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good.
What was that stupid little dance that you did the other day?
I'm sorry. From Merriam-Webster, level, to make a line or surface horizontal, make flat or level. All right. Here's the synonyms, level synonyms, even, flat, flush, or plane. Any questions?
Can't it be curved?
Well, there is one
Okay.
comment.
Go on.
And again, it's a point of bullshit that we see again in your show, Nathan, where the reason to kind of misdirect the conversation is to come back to that level flat description, and for us flat tards to not comprehend that it means distance to the center of the earth, meaning flat. And never ever in all of my life ever even during my physics stuff have I heard that term used other than in the apologetics I've heard, in all honesty, on your show, mate. You know what I mean? It's something that the ballers come in with as a response to those statements, John.
Right. It's just ridiculous that I would even have to bring this up. I mean, but I got to. I'm citing it for you. Next,
Yeah.
I'll
Like I say,
bring up.
it isn't part of my cognition before hearing it as a apologetic in a baller's argument. It was never my understanding that level meant anything other than those descriptions we see there. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we done with that one. I think that's pretty
Yeah,
self-explanatory.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Foucault pendulum. This is a big one. This is making a comeback. So let's actually define this thing. Okay. From plusmass.org. I think they got a good handle on this. The Foucault pendulum. Once you set one in motion, its direction of swing will rotate at a rate of about 0.2 degrees every minute. But in fact, it isn't really the pendulum that's rotating. The pendulum is swinging back and forth in exactly the same direction. It's the Earth which is rotating underneath the pendulum. This is the kicker, which makes it appear that the pendulum is in fact changing direction. All right. Now, if this is true, if this definition is true, then why couldn't we just hover in a helicopter in North Carolina for 3 hours and catch a Dodger game? This goes back to the Coriolis effect too. If this follows, folks, guess what? This must follow. All right? Cut and dry. Black or white, one or a zero.
The guy that came up with that description was on shrooms. Literally, in this case.
Can
There's a
I
lot of
ask
shroom abuse
why
in the
you
globe
said
earth at the moment, by the sounds of things.
Can I ask why you said that Foucault's pendulum is making a comeback? Who's making this comeback? Because I haven't seen anybody citing this. Because as far as I'm concerned,
I've heard. No, I'm not. When I said comeback, I said I just heard a couple arguments, not in this hangout, in a couple in the comment threads. You
There's
know,
only
Foucault
one
pendulum. So I
person-
thought I'd bring it back up.
There's only one person that I know that even this, and it's that Nick with Noel. Nobody else cites it because everybody else seems to accept that it's not repeatable. It doesn't do what they tell us it does. We've heard that before.
That's not true, though.
That it is true. It doesn't do what they tell us it does.
Can you cite a source?
Yeah.
I'm citing it right here.
Nobody can repeat the experiment, P.
That's not. Do you have a primary source?
Yeah, nobody can repeat it.
It's not an experiment anyway.
But it
is an
we
experiment.
We can
that's
drop that
repeatable
right now.
and
Listen, let me.
demonstratable.
You guys
Yeah,
can come back to this. I want to
Repeatable,
get
but it
through
doesn't
here
do
because
what it tells
dinner's
us.
coming up. Hold on a second. Let me get through
I
this
think
last.
it-
I think I just got one more. Yeah, one more. Am I still here?
Yeah,
you
he's still
mentioned
here.
Coriolis, John, there, and I think that experiment does have a huge impact on Coriolis in terms of frame of reference,
Right.
or its claimed frame of reference, because obviously the top of the pendulum is attached at some point.
Right. The Coriolis effect just pummels that spinning ball Earth. And here we go again. That's another point. Everyone's trying to do, and no offense to the gyros, the laser gyros, all that stuff, when all you have to do is going east to LA and then LA to Charlotte, North Carolina, both on approximately the 35th degree north latitude, right? And compare the speeds. It's over right there. Just stop. Charlotte to
Coriolis
LA.
doesn't affect planes.
Hard stop. I'm not talking about the Coriolis effect. I'm using the tenets of the Coriolis effect to prove that the Earth's not spinning.
That's ridiculous.
No planes are deflecting. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Thanks. Or
You're
maybe
funny.
a nuh-uh would work.
Funny guy.
I like nuh-uhs. They're my favorites. So let me move on. We got one more left, and you guys can
Before
rock.
you move on, John, Pete, mate, why would a tenet that proposes that the Earth's spinning be ridiculous in discussion with regards to the Earth spinning? Can you qualify why it's ridiculous? Just my understanding.
Oh, his logic is ridiculous.
Which
His
bit?
reasoning, like using the Coriolis effect to prove that the Earth isn't spinning, that's ridiculous.
Well, no, the Coriolis relates to the Earth spinning. So how do you mean? Can you quantify what you mean? Just so
Oh, the
I understand
Coriolis
your point.
is evidence that the Earth is spinning, and he's saying it's evidence that the Earth isn't spinning. That's hilarious, right?
A contradiction in the effect of the Coriolis.
There isn't a contradiction.
So can you explain your point then?
Well, the Coriolis effect is evidence that the Earth is spinning, and he said it's evidence the Earth is not spinning. So
What's the Coriolis effect?
Because like saying absurd things is kind of funny. I like humor. I'm a
What
comedian.
is the Coriolis effect?
I'm not going to answer your questions.
Okay, so we can move on here.
You want to answer my questions?
Let's go this way. No, I don't answer ridiculous because that's not an argument.
Before you get into hold on. Before you get into a tete-a-tete, I think what John's trying to establish with you, Pete, is that you do actually understand what the Coriolis effect actually is.
I don't really care.
But it's quite important if you're going to claim that when he's asserting that the fact we have a claimed effect that doesn't take place debunks the fact that we aren't spinning.
But who is he? He has no primary source. He's just some guy.
No, he's an understanding of taking on board the principles that you're talking about, such as
he has no credibility with
regards to the heliocentric model. So we're trying to comprehend these things. So, like I say, I'm not disregarding what you're saying. It just seems devoid of point, other than you're wrong. So
I disagree with you.
I know you disagree because I'm asking you to clarify your point. But if you could clarify what you actually mean, then we can move on from that. But I'm just asking you to do that. You've not actually said anything other than you disagree or you're wrong. So I'm asking you why.
No, he just disagrees with that the Coriolis effect is not occurring. But
because
I think that P. Mars is probably going to approach it like this. Any sniper out there that's going to say, no, there is no Coriolis effect, he's going to distrust. And any sniper out there that is going to say there is a Coriolis effect, he's going to trust.
Well, I trust, credible sources, right?
Right. So you basically determine what's a credible source if they say the Coriolis effect is real, correct?
No.
So what is a credible source?
Well, I mean, there's lots of credible sources.
I'm really getting confused. Do you think there is a Coriolis effect, or not?
Of course, there's a Coriolis effect.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's caused
by. Why would anyone think
there's one on them? There's one on a merry-go-round with a ball.
Because they don't measure it. Because
I've never heard a good
try
reason.
it out and it's not there.
But I've never heard a good reason to just believe in the Coriolis effect from anyone.
The Coriolis effect exists on a merry-go-round with a ball.
Over a long range, and then the bullet doesn't deviate in accordance to the Coriolis effect?
Yeah, so I believe snipers that say there's a Coriolis effect. I mean,
snipers don't
just
say
what
it.
I said.
No reason
hold
not to
on a second, Arwen. Snipers don't say that. I'm ex-military. I'm retired military. I spent half my career in combat arms. Snipers right down the hall. I cross-chain with them every quarter. They're my drinking buddies. Guess how many shots I've made over 1,500 meters personally, myself, without ever considering the Coriolis effect wasn't even brought up, much less actualized. So, what do you got to say to that?
You're a liar.
Can I ask you another question?
I told you.
Liar.
No, let's not call the guy a liar.
Ridiculous.
Don't be
Great arguments.
No, but
Well,
that's
that's
the way that Pete judges people. If you say the Coriolis effect is real, he thinks you're reliable. If you say it's not,
no, I'm not. That's not my point. P. Mars said he believes snipers that say they take into effect the Coriolis. What does he say to snipers that don't?
I don't believe there are any. I think John is a liar.
see, I told you.
So, And do
Can we
you
move
have
on? Can
evidence
we,
that
let's
there are
move
no
on from.
snipers
Can we
that
move on
don't?
from this,
Or...
Nathan? Because I'm not
Yeah,
credible
sorry,
on the
John.
liar and arguments. I
No,
mean, what are
that's
we in
pretty crap.
preschool?
But you don't. Why don't you just provide a primary source to back up what you say then?
Well,
Because
you
you
should do the
need to.
same before
The
you
Coriolis
interject.
effect.
He's a
Pete,
primary source.
It doesn't
He
need
said
to.
he did it.
Let me just
He's
explain
been
to P
doing
why.
it. He
Hold
knows
on, Owen.
snipers.
So
He
the
is a sniper,
Coriolis
but
But he's
effect.
incredible.
P.
Like I want to
Why
like
is he not credible?
I want a credible source because I want to believe. I'm not going to just believe someone on a YouTube hangout.
But you know, like
credible sources.
credible snipers. Who are these credible snipers? I don't know any credible. I know a load like Superman. He's a superhero, right? But credible sniper, I can't put. Bloke who jumps from like super high up, yeah, Mr. Baumgartner. I know him, but who's Mr. Credible Sniper that you've referencing then?
Let's just say it another way. Would you bet your life?
No, Owen, answer the
Coriolis effect
question,
being
Pete.
real?
Mate, I'm confused. I'm not having a go at you. I'm just asking you to clarify your point, dude. Because you say I can't go to crediblesnipers.com. So what do you mean by credible snipers?
I mean, if you don't know what that, I don't know how to explain words to you. Okay.
Do you mean what you've heard that snipers say? When you
of
mean
course,
when you read
that's
about
what I mean.
Coriolis,
Do you know what
you read
English
about
words mean?
snipers, and therefore
I
you
don't-
mean you have no
I don't
evidence
know how to
for it,
clarify anymore. Like,
Oh, no, please, because you've not clarified anything, not anymore.
in your opinion,
No, not to anyone. Did anybody think P's
My opinion,
clarified
Pete.
anything yet?
In my
well,
opinion,
you're asking
no.
a bunch of biased flat earthers.
No, I'm
so-
asking you
Side for
to
two.
clarify why you make a definitive statement.
I have
and just
clarified.
to source it for who's Mr. Credible Sniper then?
I gave my opinion.
Is it
I clarified
Dave?
myself several times, and you just keep asking me to clarify myself. So, like, what's the point? I'm not.
Is it the bloke in that
If you
Yeah,
don't
but
Hollywood
understand
movie?
what I'm saying, you're not listening
You're
to me.
not
I don't
making
know
a
what the hell's
point,
going on.
You're not
That's just
explaining
your
what a
opinion.
credible source is in this matter.
Well, that is my opinion. That's why I'm talking to you, obviously. So I'm asking you, in my opinion, could you maybe clarify a little bit more?
In my
that I could
opinion,
have-
I don't think I could. I think you're just being obstinate.
So there isn't a source, is that what you're saying, as of credible snipers?
Hey, look, you can fact check me. Okay, go fact check me.
Well, that's what I'm asking, probably, isn't it?
We'll
To
go fact
you.
check your nuh-ahs, right? This is all you
can
got.
fact-
We're
you
in
can
preschool.
fact check what I
Can we
say.
move
I don't
on?
think you can fact check anything John says because he just makes
Hey,
it up.
I'm not asking John a question. I'm not. I've been talking to John for ages, and where I felt the need to interject with John, I have done. I'm asking you, and actually, John was much more forthcoming and honest with his opinion. And you.
I think. Look, sir.
I'm
My
not,
opinion is the
I am English, and I could hold that.
Coriolis effect is real. Okay, that's what I think. Now, if you disagree, you can fact check yourself. I don't know what to tell you.
We
Yeah,
never
so
said
I'm
it wasn't
happy with
real.
Coriolis.
The
I
Coriolis, hold on. The
understand that.
Coriolis, oh my goodness gracious.
The
The
point I was
Coriolis
raising
effect
was you
exists.
said, according to credible snipers. I asked you to quantify where credible snipers comes from. That was all, sir.
But
How do
coincidentally,
you determine their credibility?
Right,
Here
so
we
that's
go
what I was
again.
wondering.
Would
Is there a
Sorry,
Can we
website
move
while we go
on?
on to credible snipers and just keep going around in circles about this subject, I just want to clarify exactly what the Coriolis effect is in regards to Earth. So when set in motion, freely moving objects, including air, the atmosphere, and water masses, clouds, water vapour, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Because freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they are subject to an apparent deflection. Now, this is the deflection that we are talking about when we talk about a bullet straying when it comes out of a rifle, i.e. the Earth moves independently of that bullet after it leaves the Earth's surface. So this is what we're talking about. That's why I asked you to clarify what you thought the Coriolis effect is, because it has nothing to do with Earth in terms of what the apparent deflection we are describing when we say Coriolis effect. It could be demonstrated on a merry-go-round by throwing a ball as the merry-go-round turns. That effect, the apparent deflection that you see, the curved path, is only apparent. The ball's travelling in a straight line, but because the second reference frame, the rotating roundabout, is turning, from your vantage point, it looks like the ball takes a curved path, or in this case, bullet. But it's an apparent deflection. So when you say things like the Coriolis effect is real, well, yeah, it is. But you would need two independent reference frames, one of which would have to be rotating, in order for this effect to actually manifest. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Silence.
I pulled it up.
Something for me to
on
say
on
now?
screen.
I don't understand.
In other words, the only Coriolis effect is on a merry-go-round
Exactly.
because the Earth isn't spinning.
Exactly. All
Pretty
right,
sure
we
the
good?
Earth is spinning.
We good? Can we move on now?
I think so.
All right. Let me go back down to the last point. Sorry for my impatience. Dinner's waiting. So this is my last point. Then you guys can rock on. The spinning space monkeys claim that the reason we can't feel the Earth spinning is the same reason we can throw a ball in the air while moving on a speeding train and it lands back in your hand, right? They then attempt to pay attention to some detail and say the train is an open system, just like the Earth. Yeah, it's only an open system in this case because matter is being exchanged. That is the ventilation system on the train, right? That's the only thing making it an open system, and it exchanges it with the train's surroundings. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's weld shut the ventilation system in that moving train, right? Or before the train takes off, and we'll put people on the train with oxygen masks and have them throw the ball up in the air. We just made it a fully closed system, and it still lands back in their hand. So there's no material impact on their argument. Their argument still stands. We just have a closed system. And like I said, it doesn't materially impact the fruitcake's argument and makes the train a closed system, right? Now let's open system that closed system. Let's have them stand in the bed of a pickup truck, open system, with a ping pong ball and have the truck reach 70 miles an hour and have them throw that ping pong ball up in the air. Will it land back in your hand? Yeah. Their clumsy planes, trains, automobiles fiasco is a feeble false equivalence fallacy, right? I'm sick of hearing this stupid argument. And by the way, you can have open systems within closed systems and vice versa. All right, now you guys can go on and rock on. That's the end of my points.
Thank you, John. Pleasure as always.
Hey, does
Can I just
everyone
add?
any comments? Sorry, any comments or
If you've
Okay.
seen that movie Mission Impossible, we're on the top of the train and they're moving at bullet speed, and
Oh
guys,
yeah, I just seen
you know,
that. That was
thing
cool.
is
I
they're
was thinking
flapping.
about that too. Yeah.
Try throwing a ball up in that scenario and have you catch it.
On the outside of the train.
Right, right. So hopefully everyone's got it. It's just a play on open and closed systems. They think they can weasel and slime their way out because of the ventilation system on the train, right? That's what makes you can see the difference here. An open system is a system that can exchange matter and energy with its surroundings. But a closed system, you can only exchange energy, right? Right? So because it's exchanging matter, and matter is oxygen, the air that you breathe, that's matter. They try to slime their way around it, right? And say that it's an open system. Of course, it's got walls and a ceiling, right? Yeah. Let's really open system that train, and we'll get in the bed of that pickup truck. We all know what's going to happen with that ping pong ball at 70 miles an hour, don't we? It doesn't even have to be a ping pong ball. It could be a baseball, softball, a bowling ball, right? So there you go. That's all I had.
Smashed it. Love
those-
it.
those
Great.
points.
Awesome. You get to your dinner.
I'll stick for a couple minutes to see if there's any rebuttals to this.
Well, your definition of open and closed systems seem a bit different than the ones I read from Google.
Really?
I thought that was a
What is-
very clever way of demonstrating what truly an open and closed system is. How do you mean?
Yeah, these are the definitions right here. Open,
I thought
closed,
it
and
was quite
isolated.
a good way of actually accentuating the point of an open and closed system. I used that same analogy, John, this afternoon with my brother-in-law making that point, and that's why I thought it's very clever that if you actually were to completely seal the system so that the people inside were breathing independently of the system, it shows that their actions are within a closed system. I thought that was very clever. I thought it was a good analogy. Is problem with that, Pete?
Yeah, you just closed. I mean, there's no way out if you put them on there with oxygen masks and weld the ventilation system. Then you have a true closed system. They just try to weasel their way out because of the matter part. You know, because if you have matter exchange, then it's an open system by definition, right? That's how they try. It's just a weaseling, sliming way to try to get out. But
I agree with you, John. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was confused by why P Mars, yeah, started with. It was confused. Can you explain, bro?
Well, I don't know. What did you say? He said, open system exchanges matter and energy, but I didn't read that. I read that the Earth was an open system for energy and a closed system for matter.
Oh God, here we go again. I'm not getting into him with Nathan. Go back to the video where Timmy bit the dust with this fiasco.
I think Timmy smoked your ass.
It seemed a strange response to what we said, but you're not trying to deflect, are you, dude?
I mean, I don't even understand John. Like John is just like
you didn't understand. You didn't understand that. I've just explained.
No, I can never understand John.
I just explained the nuances of John's experiment and how I thought how intelligent the nuances of the explanation he gave by giving the oxygen mask was. So I understand it to a very decent level, and you're saying you don't understand the basics of it. What are you doing?
No, like I don't know, like
what point you
John
going to make?
John makes no sense to me. Like I can't follow his logic.
You're making no sense to anyone.
Well, he makes a lot of sense.
I'm not even
to me,
making
and
any
I'm not that
points.
smart.
No, I didn't say you weren't making points. You're making plenty of points. If I'm being honest,
No, I'm
you're
not.
not making any
I want to talk about something else, but
I bet you do.
I just like to say, if the Earth was actually rotating, the wind would truly only be blowing in one direction.
Correct.
Why?
Were you at my barbecue this afternoon? That was hilarious.
Tell you what, P, why don't you tell us why it wouldn't?
Why would I know that?
Because you laughed at him when he suggested it.
Because he doesn't like cite a source. Like if you don't cite a source and you just make a claim, it's kind of funny to me.
Well, the Coriolis force is exactly what he's describing. Wind that would travel in one direction, east to west, right?
Anthony, you know, this afternoon, I say at the barbecue, I explained to my brother-in-law how I'd listened to Nathan's show and the ballers come on to explain how the atmosphere can travel along with the Earth at the same speed, right? And how they use the frictional force of the Earth to slowly, over millions of years, generate an exact speed. His first response as a baller was, well, why did it stop there then? And then he started to go, well, why did it go the left and right and up and down? Even ballers, mate, don't believe the mathematical nonsense that has been purported as excuses. I don't know if P's that's one, but I was going to say it was just something that funny came up this afternoon. Like I say, my brother-in-law's a baller, and he has lots of questions. And we were talking about atmospheric, you know, the wind speed and that, and got onto that. So it's I'll leave it there, but you know, I tried to explain it from a baller point of view.
Hey, gentlemen, I'm going to have to go.
What you having
listen,
for your tea?
thanks for allowing me to present, and I'll catch you guys later. Nice talking to you, Adam.
Yeah,
maybe
you
we
too,
can,
brother. Hey, look, I'll get through with Nathan and we'll catch up hopefully, mate, and love to chat properly.
outstanding, sir. Yeah, I'd enjoy it.
Bless, man.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
Have a good night.
Thank you for your
Good
time.
night.
See you soon, bro.
I don't know about you guys, but it's been 2 streams of over 3 hours. I don't know if I should round out here. What do you think?
It's past midnight here. So.
Yeah, midnight for you, 11:30 for us. I think it might be the appropriate time to round out before I start slurring my speech. So I will first and foremost say a massive, enormous, huge thank you to all of the live audience for tuning into these live streams, hopefully sharing. If you hated the stream, you know exactly what to do. But if you like the stream, be sure to hit the like button, maybe share the show, and subscribe if you've not done so already. Also, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!